Hello and welcome. Well, today we're looking at South Africa's xenophobic attacks. Are migrants really stealing their jobs? Indeed, is that what our forefathers fought for? It must be a shame and a bad tint against all black races, what they're doing down there. Yes, at every given time in point, indigents have felt a bit threatened, particularly when times are hard. If you see one or two people working and you don't have a job and they don't happen to come from your locality, their first assumption is that, hey, they're stealing our jobs. Indeed, even in the Western world, once upon a time in the UK when Ethiopians came, they were given free houses, some were given hotels to stay in, and the British citizens were thinking, no, we've been dealt a hard blow. We are here, we are homeless, we have nothing to do. How come Ethiopians can come and get all these luxuries? So yes, xenophobic sentiments run across all races and all classes. But to the extreme and to the extent to which the South Africans have taken it this time, I think it's a shame, and I think it has to stop immediately. But we're just going to find out the origins of this. Indeed, is it because they were oppressed as a people? Is it a genuine fear that, the few migrants that are there are stealing their jobs? Well, with me to discuss this is a political scientist who would probably take us to the genesis of this and try to break it down. Later on in the show, Ibad will join us. But for now in the studio, I have Dr. Theophilus Richardson, political scientist. Doc, welcome.
Thanks very much.
Doc, well, first of all, we say condolences to everybody who's lost their soul in South Africa, be that they are Ghanaian or not. But, Doc, what do you think has brought this reaction? I mean, because I think it's just a bit aggressive.
I don't know how to start the analysis, but as for the causes of this xenophobic attacks in South Africa, we must place it in a context. And it has to do primarily with the consequences of the model of political economy that was established by the white South African apartheid regime, which occasioned widespread violation of human rights and brutalization of the white black South African population. Mm-hmm. We need to understand this crisis. We need to understand the dynamics of that model of political economy and the consequences. We also have to realize this, that it is not an isolated case. I think all over in Europe for some time now, there has emerged, and it's indeed on the ascendancy, what I would say, xenophobic attacks, neo-Nazis, groups who are been demanding end of immigration into their countries. In Germany, we have that. In the UK, we have, as a result of what they think uncontrolled immigration, the rise of UK Independence Party, which has, for the first time, I think had a seat in the British Parliament, mm-hmm. and has been given a platform for the upcoming elections, I think on 7th of May. Mm-hmm. And many other countries as well, not only related to the Islamic fundamentalism, mm-hmm. or various aspects of religious fundamentalism, as we did see in, in some Scandinavian countries, Denmark and all that, mm-hmm. And attacks on Jews in France. These are all aspects of the resurgence of extreme nationalism, okay, where particular national ethnic groups, in this, want to protect their identity and their resources.
Is it normal? Is it a normal reaction that people feel threatened, and it's particularly when times are hard? I mean, when the Polish were coming into London, mm-hmm. or into the UK, mm-hmm. And they will take up all the car wash job, the cleaning job. They will take half the money, work twice the hours. And so people prefer to use them rather than the locals. We take, Ghana when the Chinese started, hawking, and, I hear there was a Chinese in Takoradi roasting corn, and people got, no, now you are infringing into our territory.
Yeah.
So I think it's normal reaction where if there's not enough to go around and you see quote unquote foreigners, getting enough, you think, oh, hold on, this should have been my share. Yeah. So I don't think it's peculiar to South Africa. It's just the extreme brutality.
The extreme brutality, that's what I'm saying, that it's not, peculiar to South Africa. We have it in Europe and all other places, where there has been the resurgence of extreme nationalism. Even if you take the other areas, it is not only, in what jobs do you find Ghanaians? In the menial jobs. And the police did not only move into menial jobs, valeting and car washing and all that. Those Poles who went into England and other Western countries were highly skilled artisans. Okay? The difference there is in their work culture is that, unlike the Englishman who will work and take his normal break for the period, the Pole will ordinarily, work to finish a job batch before he takes his break. So when it is 5 o'clock and there is a job batch and he has not finished, he will continue with that. So they were highly skilled people. In the case of South Africa, as I did indicate, as a result of the model of political, which was the creation of reserve labor, okay, unlike the Ghanaian political economy, which was one of the African, what we call the African in the colonial economy, based on cash crop production, where the people the people with the requisite skills were there, where the resources were there, and they engaged the people in the production of cash crops and other economic activity in an integrated economy. The South Africans' case was not like that. They created a reserve labor from Lesotho to South Africa. Why? Because the land was not well endowed, okay? And so what they needed was the use of the labor of those people. To get the labor, they expropriated their lands, and to force them to participate in the economy, impose taxes on them. Now, to pay your taxes, you must offer your labor. That's the only thing you had. And that led to segregation, or the apartheid system, which was indeed introduced by Henry Verwoerd in 1948.
Let's take the ambassador's comment, and then we build our premises on that. So we'll take the insert now.
No Ghanaian citizen has died because of the xenophobic attacks in South Africa. One Ghanaian, Emmanuel Koko, died on the 7th of April in Durban. He was an epileptic patient. He had an attack in the streets of KwaMashu in Durban and died. He was taken to hospital, and a post-mortem report stated that he died of natural causes. We have also had reports of 4 Ghanaians that died in Hebron. Again, the South African Ghanaian High Commission in South Africa and the police have confirmed that there have been no xenophobic attacks in that area. It is currently being investigated, the cause of death, but again, it has clearly been declared that it was not from xenophobic attacks. On behalf of the South African government, we condemn, nonetheless, in the strongest possible terms, the recent outbreak of violent attacks in parts of the country against foreign nationals, particularly fellow Africans from various countries on the continent. South Africa's transition to democracy was one of the world's most iconic testimonies of tolerance and peaceful coexistence.
Oh, okay. Welcome back, and let me welcome also my junior brother, Ibad. Ibad, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Nana.
Very good. Well, we are well within your territory, international and security put together, so it doesn't get closer to your territory than that. But I'll let Prof land on your analysis, and then I'll bring Ibad in here. You're talking about how the economy was set up in South Africa.
So the South Africa had only his labor to offer, and they built labor reserve camps. You know, Soweto means Southwest Township, and they have another township where the black South Africans were kept as reserve labor, and they migrated to Johannesburg, Durban, you know, and other industrial hubs to work. At the end of every day, they go back to South Africa. At the end of the day, they did not have, let me say, the kind of education that would have equipped them with the requisite knowledge and skills. So, post-apartheid South Africa, most of the blacks did not have, high level of education. The primary education was very basic. They did not have the language and the skills. Indeed, it was the attempt to introduce Afrikaner language, you know, in the South Africans with the black schools that led to the Soweto massacre, you know, which led to the immortalization of this guy, Henry Peterson, you know, in whose name they have created a museum. When I was in South Africa, I met his sister, the sister who carried him on that day. And so they were taught in their own language, very low levels, not university education, okay? Everything, that all the highly skilled jobs were monopolized by the whites. And what the South African, post-apartheid, black South African administrations, from Nelson Mandela through Mbeki to Zuma, have failed to do so far, is to create, the kind of conditions which will address these fundamental problems. You know, instead, they misdiagnosed the problem and thought that all they needed to do was to create a new class of black middle class South Africans. Okay, let me say a new black South African bourgeoisie, who would then lead the process of capital accumulation and then have a trickle down to other South Africans in order to mitigate or attenuate poverty. And so the South Africans themselves have not understood properly the workings of the apartheid economy that was established by the whites. No, if you go to Johannesburg, by 8 o'clock, the central business district of South Africa, of Johannesburg, is empty. Whereas if the process, the economy had been opened up, it would have offered opportunities for the black, you know, to engage in the night economy. There's no night economy in Johannesburg. Most of the residential areas, which were owned by the blacks, by the whites, when they moved out, were occupied by middle classes. And they are more or less, I don't know, like prison quarters, tall walls with, you know, wire fence, security, and all that. So they have failed to create opportunity. The blacks do not have the skills, and these xenophobic attacks or sentiments are not new. Teachers, Ghanaian teachers in South Africa have complained long ago that they have suffered from a lot of taunts and threats from South African teachers that you have come to take our jobs. Indeed, they don't have the teachers to fill the positions. They don't have the skills to set up their own artisanal workshops. Only a few. And if you go to Soweto, the road infrastructure is superb. They have their well-paved streets, houses, well-fenced, you know, and they have their own industrial area where the artisans work. But it is limited. In fact, it is an industrialized, advanced industrial economy, well controlled, and there are not openings for the blacks. This is one of the consequences, and I think that, as I've indicated, to understand what is happening, we need to have a proper understanding of the political economy. The South Africans feel that their opportunities and resources are being expropriated by foreigners who have invaded the country, forgetting the roles played by Africans, you know, in bringing about the end of apartheid.
Let me bring Ibad in here. Ibad, there's an article on the website, I don't know if you've read it, by William Gumendi, and it's titled South Africa Must Confront the Roots of its Xenophobic Violence. and I'll read a bit. This is a wave of deadly xenophobic attack against foreigners of South African descent that has shamed South Africa, and its astonishingly hard response by the government has multiple cases. This simmer under the surface from the time they explode violently. Now, he goes on to say that the honesty, that they did not acknowledge it, and that when the attacks blew up, the government remained stuck in denial. Leadership claimed that it was not xenophobic, it was just made up of isolated incidents. Goes again to say South Africa is deeply a violent society, and we must own up to that in order to better deal with the reality and oppressed peoples counter violence in response. It goes on further to say that apartheid has not only left a deep legacy of white against black racism, but also prejudice against Africans from other countries. Okay, let me now acknowledge the High Commissioner who's now joined us online, High Commissioner Lulama. Hello and welcome. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Madame Lulama.
Yes, I can't hear you. Very low.
Okay, I'll raise my voice a bit and hopefully it will be any better now.
Yeah.
Well, I think you came in just at the right time, because I was actually going to put a question to my colleague in studio, but I'll put the question to you, and I'll read it. And it says that the South Africans are generally a violent society, and you must own up to it. This is by a very renowned journalist called William Gumende, who's saying that South Africans are generally a very violent people, and maybe because of the oppressions, your reaction, your first time reaction is, basically explode. And how true is that?
I can't hear.
Well, I can hear you clearly. I don't know what else I can do. If sound can help me. You still can't hear me at all?
Yeah, you're very low though.
Very low. Well, I think sound will have to see if they can correct it, and then we'll try and call you back. Well, I don't think she can hear me, but I'll put the question to you. I mean, how true?
I think already Prof has impressively given you a heavy dose of the etymology, the historical antecedent, and all that. But let's look at the facts as they are in our contemporary times. If you have the upper echelons of a society exude hostility to the highest level, recently when the President Jacob Zuma addressed the Parliament about the state of the economy, Julius Malema and other people were huddled by force by security agencies, and that was unprecedented for security agencies to break the cordon and go into Parliament and violently treat, legislators that had been duly elected. So Julius Malema has said it and he hasn't minced words, that the trickle-down effect of the violence that has been exuded by the president himself, and he's from KwaZulu-Natal, one of the areas we've registered the highest numbers of xenophobic attacks. So therefore, perhaps it is part of the grain of the South African people to be boisterous in times like this. So
I think we have Madam Lula on the line, who's the High Commissioner to... hello, let's try this time. Is it any better, Madam Lula?
Yes.
Well, my question to you, and I was actually reading from an article by William Gumende, and if you can hear me, let me just read it to you again. It says, honestly, it says, acknowledging and facing up to the underlining, no, actually it just says that South Africa is a deeply violent society. We must own up to that in order to better deal with the reality. The culture of violence has its roots in the violence of colonialism and apartheid, and the oppressed peoples counter violence in response. Would you attest to that?
So what is the question?
Well, the question is that obviously it's about the xenophobic attacks in South Africa. And we are trying to look at the roots of it, saying that generally South Africans are violent. And that's how come, maybe the reaction towards foreigners in South Africa.
No, that is not true. that is not true. The majority of South Africans have not been involved in this violence. In fact, last week there was a big march by South African leaders, government officials, community leaders, church leaders, young people who were actually saying no to violence, who were saying not in our name, and they were marching in support and in solidarity with foreign nationals that were attacked. The South African government and most leaders, including trade unions and various political parties, have condemned outright this violence and attack against foreign nationals in South Africa.
Mother, but you would agree with me that, I mean, you wouldn't have 80% of South Africans being violent for the society to be deemed as violent, but there would be, pockets of, people who misbehave, and whether you like it or not, the whole society will be tarred.
Well, we find those in any society. In Ghana, we have people who hack people with machetes and kill them. We have people all over the world that are attacking and killing people. So South Africa is not different from any other country or any other nation. But what is important is that the South African government has stood up and condemned this violence. The president has deployed ministers, has beefed up the police, shelters and places of center have been set up to protect foreign nationals against this violence. 307 criminals that have perpetuated this violence have been arrested by the South African police. And we believe that since yesterday, even today, there has been peace and calm in South Africa. We believe that these attacks are not going to continue anymore.
Was the government reaction not too slow? Because the initial response was that, oh, it was just pockets of violence, had nothing to do with xenophobia. The government's reaction was a bit too slow.
Well, I think the government reacted immediately. They sent police to the affected areas. People that have been perpetrating this violence were arrested, and as we speak, they are going to court. Prosecution is continuing. The whole of this week, President Zuma has sent out the cabinet to go and speak to communities. The youth are organizing what they call the Africa Unite to End Violence campaign. They will be marching, they will be mobilizing communities, mobilizing and working with foreign nationals to say no to this violence.
But Luloma, you say that, but the same leaders who are taking action, if I may say, number one name on the list is King Goodwill Ziwenthi, who's saying that, they should kick foreigners out of South Africa. Admittedly, he said his whole speech was based on peace, but there was just one line in which he expressed his sentiment about, foreigners being kicked out. Jacob Zuma is on record saying that South Africans are not ordinary blacks and should not behave as ordinary blacks. I mean, can't these be some of the things that are feeding, these...
Well, I have not heard some of these statements that you are referring to. Today, King Zwelithini has called an imbizo in which he called for the end to this violence. He has actually addressed thousands of people in Durban, in KwaZulu-Natal, condemning the violence. And also President Zuma has gone to meet with the communities, foreign nationals, listened to their concerns. Before that, he also went and made a statement in Parliament where he condemned the violence categorically and has committed that the government will do everything in its power to actually end this violence and make sure that it does not happen again in South Africa. But I am concerned with your radio station and some of the media and press newspapers who have reported that Ghanaians have died in South Africa because of these attacks. I think we need to be responsible when we report about these matters and not sensationalize serious issues like this, which definitely make people panic, which definitely cause instability, both in South Africa and here in Ghana. But what is important is that we must check our facts. We must make sure that we have researched. When we make statements, we are sure we're clear of what we're talking about. I have reports from the police in South Africa that all the people who have died, Ghanaians who have died in South Africa, have died from natural causes, causes, but also the 4 Ghanaians that died in Hebron, they died from gas that they were using a generator, and as a result of that, the fumes that came out of that in the room where they were sleeping actually killed those people. That area, the police and the High Commissioner, Ghanaian High Commissioner in South Africa, have confirmed that there have never been xenophobic attacks there, and therefore there's no way those people were attacked and killed in the attacks. Well, so I think it's important that we report responsibly as the media and not make communities panic when actually
but you must understand our sentiments. If times like these, Ghanaians die in your country, the first thing we would assume is xenophobia. We wouldn't think they died of malaria or anything because of what's going on. But my next question is, I don't think South Africans just went to sleep and woke up and suddenly got so angry, and some of the crime perpetrated, burning people alive. Something must have gingered it. What do you think?
Well, I think before you make your report, you must check with reliable sources. You must check at least with the South African government or the police and make sure that the statements you make are true, because it is important that
are you saying it's not true that there are xenophobic attacks in South Africa?
I am saying it is not true that Ghanaians have died because of xenophobic attacks.
I haven't mentioned any Ghanaians.
We have condemned. We have said we are condemning those xenophobic attacks. We are stopping that violence. People have been arrested, and we are saying that we are embarking on a campaign.
I am saying if we don't find out how it started,
don't happen again.
But
I'm saying, as journalists, let us be responsible and ethical, so that when we make statements, we don't make the nation panic.
And I'm saying, if we don't find the cause, how do we stop it? That's what I'm asking. I don't think these guys just woke up one morning and suddenly got this angry. So what gingered them this anger, this rage?
It is important that we check our facts. I repeat again, no Ghanaian has died because of xenophobic attacks in South Africa.
Okay, thank you very much, madam. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nana?
Yes.
Nana? I'm a bit disconcerted because it is a fine woman. She's new to the job anyway. She came only a few months ago. She's trying to mount a defense of something that is indefensible, literally speaking. She has a huge PR job on her hands. And I believe so that as Ghanaians, one Ghanaian life being lost in a foreign land is one too many. We need accountability. Whoever perpetrated this heinous medieval acts of brutally attacking our people, those people should be made to face the rigors of international law. And the onus lies upon the South African leadership to own up to their responsibility that a society that is built on principles does not have its youth go haywire and kill people with this level of barbarity we've witnessed in the streets of South Africa. So anybody who was responsible for the death of any Ghanaian or any African migrant should be brought to justice.
I think I agree with you, because I think you got to a point where
I think she veered off course, and we aren't saying, look,
in the just rehearsing, she has rehearsed a response to the, with the kind of, anticipate the kind of questions you're going to put here. And it was just, repeating, regurgitating the kind of, and we need that. It's just a waste of time, a very good PR skill. But we don't need that.
Let me take a break. I think we've written it.
It couldn't have been a mere coincidence that 4 Ghanaians died from what? Use of what? Gas?
Generator.
No, it couldn't.
I'm going to take a break, and then when I come back, we will look at some of the speeches which, have been made by leaders of South Africa. Could that also be part, or are we just trying to find anything to just dot these I's? Don't move, we're coming back. Xenophobic attacks in South Africa, feel they're threatened that, non-South Africans are taking their job. How realistic is that? But thank you for all those who are posting your comments on Facebook. I read a couple. Ali Ibrahim says she needs humble slaps. I think so. Erika Fee says, South Africa, when you were being maltreated, the rest of the world opened their gates to accommodate you. Civil unrest is coming to your country soon. Where will you run to? Edzi Mensa Ebenezer, but at least there is an attack. I'm sure she's talking about the argument. And you so-called Joy News believe that, huh? And that's when the woman was saying that the guys died with a generator in their room rather than a xenophobic attack. Abdul Hamid says, tell her to, that's a bit. Kwabna Amo says, we are not fools to accept such lies. Christopher Akpere says, I also think the situation has been over-exaggerated. But then my brother says one is even too many. Magzi Mubarak says it will be a good news if no Ghanaian dies, but still, it was barbaric and inhumane. I'll catch up with some of your comments later, so keep coming, and thank you for bringing them in. The issue about, their jobs being taken, all start saying that, for the about 33 million people that work there, probably just under 2 million are non-South Africans. So the threat is actually not that real. But in every situation, but when times are hard, I mean, even if 2 people don't come from the country and they have jobs and you don't have it, you're thinking, hold on, why is it not me? Why is it them? All across.
I think the recurrence is becoming too much. In 2008, well over 60 people were killed as a result of such xenophobic attacks, Nana. So I think moving forward, South Africa, as things stand, is an embarrassment, an international embarrassment to the African continent until they make amends. And I believe there needs to be the needed education, right from the elementary level, high school level, the tertiary level, and secondary level, to make them really appreciate the contribution of Black Africa to their own liberation struggle. And when you look at the young people that are acting like street urchins, a bunch of riffraff, so lazy to look for jobs, and they are blaming their economic woes on others. Nana, you can peg their ages between 18 and 35. And apartheid ended in 94, some 21 years ago. So the assumption is that it's either they were unborn when Africans struggled for their own independence, or they were too young to have known. So therefore, it becomes very difficult to decouple state responsibility or negligence in causing the series of events we have seen, pan out before our very eyes. So there's no way you can take away the government from this. These activities are not state-sanctioned. Certainly, Zuma did not say throw on the streets and kill people. By the end of the day, there were things the government should have done.
What did he mean by South Africans should not behave as normal Africans, as if they were normal Africans?
He's a loose talker. You remember some time ago, he had intimacy with a lady, and they said perhaps you could, suffer from HIV/AIDS, and his simplistic answer was that he had taken a shower after the exercise. So it's part of their culture, and we need to realize that the South Africans are a unique bunch of Africans in themselves. But this time around, I think they've crossed the Rubicon. And just as I was telling you, and I think Africa has a lot of respect for South Africa. When you travel to Europe or America, and you say you are from Africa, the model African country they know is South Africa. So in this contemporary time, this level of savagery and carnage, if it had even happened in DR Congo or Rwanda, These are war-ravaged countries. We could have understood. A model African country, close to being a first world country on the continent. So therefore, it's unjustifiable, it's reprehensible, and it's indefensible, regardless of the PR, robust defense the High Commissioner or all other, wings of the government decides to put up.
Well, there's a post going around saying, oh, boycott South African goods, boycott South African shops. Indeed, there's rumors that the people who are threatening to even burn down the embassy. I mean, should we boycott to punish them?
We shouldn't push the envelope too far. The bilateral ties that bind nations are meant to be symbiotic, but in Ghana's relationship with South Africa, ours is parasitic. So therefore, I think it would be too draconian for us to jump the gun and take such stringent positions. We should let all the wheels of, diplomacy grind on, and I believe so well that the strong rhetoric that has come from ECOWAS and the AU will make the leaders over there set up. And South Africans should be grateful to Africa. In 2004, the volume of South African exports to Black Africa yielded them $25 billion. So therefore, if we shut down MTN, which is a South African company, and we shut down ShopRite and MultiChoice, DSTV, these are huge sources of external revenue for them. So there are repercussions, and in such, international, diplomatic rows, you make sure you use all the tools within the toolbox of diplomacy. So I wouldn't want us to be that harsh to call for an embargo or a boycott of South African companies, but we should bring to bear the needed political pressure on the leaders over there to, number one, consider there's a humanitarian crisis. Nana, if you were living in South Africa around this time, by 5 p.m. at twilight, you would be scared. The mere arrival of darkness keeps you scared, because in the dead of the night, some spooks can come knocking on the door and then, slash you to death. And people are internally displaced. We have Ghanaians and other people that are refugees in a foreign land. People hold their mattresses and go to the nearest police station to sleep. That is why I think Ghana's government cannot sleep on the job. I don't understand what our foreign affairs minister means that our evacuation will be done as and when they deem it necessary. I believe so well that the situation is so dire, and the prudent foreign policy decision to make right now is to, as a matter of urgency, not repeat the mistakes we made in Libya. During the Libyan conflict, that was the argument people put up, that it was only happening in Benghazi, and Ghanaians were living in Tripoli or Sabha. By the end of the day, lots of Ghanaians were killed. And in South Africa, there are illegal immigrants, Ghanaians that are not on the record of our High Commission over there. So therefore, I think as a matter of urgency, Ghana should set in motion the needed mechanisms for the evacuation of people. And a conflict may happen for only 24 hours, but its unintended consequences, Nana, will tarry on forever. So therefore, people cannot feel at ease working in South Africa. And the earlier we got Ghanaians back home, the better. The 4 additional people who were killed, had we evacuated people early enough, that Emmanuel Kweku would have been the only Ghanaian casualty. But because we keep dragging our feet, and in the thick fog of a crisis like this, it becomes practically impossible to separate fact from fiction. There could be many more others that have been killed, but they are under the radar. So therefore, as a matter of urgency, this is a humanitarian crisis, and I believe our government should be doing more than it is doing currently.
Doc, let me bring you in. The NPP has issued a statement saying that they don't think government position is strong enough, and that they wanted some, government to, condemn it outrightly or come out all guns blazing. I feel government has been a bit too diplomatic about their reaction. What do you think?
Well, I would even say more than that. I would have put it even more bluntly than that. And I would want this to become even a political platform for the next elections. Okay? Because if I may go back just a little, I don't know what President Zuma meant by saying that South Africans must not behave like normal Africans.
Yeah.
I don't know what he meant by normal Africans. What I want to state here, categorically, is that Africa is a continent, and Africa consists of several peoples or ethnicities. The ethnic group is the nation, and each and every ethnic group has got its own characteristics. A number of ethnic groups may be put together to form a country. There may not be nations, and therefore within the ethnic country, you may have several nations. South Africa, the blacks in South Africa, are not one homogeneous ethnic group. although we thought that they were all Bantus, but we have the Sotos, Lesotho, from Lesotho, the Sotos, and we have the Zulus and others.
Let's move forward to government reaction.
No, but Prof, I'm a Northerner. Nana is a Southerner. There are Dagombes in Ghana. There are Fantis. There are Shantis. There are Evers. If we've learned to stay with one another in peace, I don't think South Africa can give any justification to fail in that national cohesion.
Excuse me. Each and every ethnic group has got its own characteristics. I'm addressing the point he made that normal Africans, he's lumped all Africans together as though we have certain characteristics, which are peculiar, and the South Africans have different characteristics which set them apart from the rest of Africans. They are innately violent. The result of the armed resistance to apartheid, has and the use of violence, therefore, to resolve conflict.
I still want to push you to government's reaction.
Yes, government reaction. I don't think it has not been forthright enough. And
what more can he do? He's issued a statement. I'm not happy.
As my colleague has, just indicated, the government dragged its feet. The reaction was not, forthright and bold enough. This is a situation where people are being killed in a very savage and brutal way. I would want this to even become a political issue for the next elections. How responsible is our government towards our citizens outside? If you take the life of one American, Americans are all over the world, but if you took the life of one American, the American government will not sit down. And I think for a long time, our government have stood aloof, when Ghanaian citizens have been brutalized, with indignity in other countries. Let me go back a little. In 1973 or thereabout, Black Star went to Togo to play a friendly match with the Togolese national team. In this Ghana, Togo, they had a friendly sports, just as we had with Ivory Coast. Black Stars were beaten up, then their citra bars bent. With this man, was the Yao Sam and others, sustaining severe injuries. We played the match against Nigeria at Accra Sports Stadium. Kweso Wusu was the captain of Black Stars. Kweso Wusu of Wakwa. Okala was the captain of Nigeria in the post. Kweso Wusu beat him by Surya. He ran from his post to the middle and to slap Kweso Wusu. Nothing was done. And we have been saying that Ghanaians, we are civilized, we are enlightened, we are peace-loving people. I think it was time we sat down to address the Ghanaian identity. Who is the Ghanaian? And what is his interest within Ghana and abroad? And I think
clearly we can't go to war, so what do you do? Sanction them?
We are not going to war. Yeah, we can sanction them. Why not? Because of the brutalities meted out by the apartheid South African regime, sanctions were placed on South Africa, the bite of which led to the conciliatory move taken by the president. What was his name? Give me his name. Was it the president of South Africa?
Thabo Mbeki?
No, Thabo Mbeki.
Mandela?
Nelson Mandela?
No, before Nelson Mandela. The white man, who led the process.
Who led the process.
The process. I've just forgotten his name. All right. But
was it Botha?
No, after Botha, de Klerk. De Klerk, because the sanctions were at that time biting. They were excluded from Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, all other games. It was only even World of Sports of Boxing. Only World Boxing Association administered South Africa. Okay, and it was time, as he has indicated, our economic relationship with South Africa is a very parasitic one in favor of South Africa. ShopRite, MT, and all that. The amount of profits that are repatriated to South Africa. Yeah. How much Ghanaian capital is South Africa? So I would want the OAU or the AU to take a very bold, brave, and stern decision, action on this. We must suspend the membership of South Africa in the AU. Yeah. We must suspend them from a couple of African nations. We must even seek a forum at the United Nations, to suspend them from the United Nations. Because if Ghana has suffered a great deal to contribute to the abolition of apartheid, we cannot sit down for the South African High Commissioner to, in an escapist manner, attempt this kind of excuse that four Ghanaians died from the halation of whatever, carbon monoxide from, no. We are very upset. I think our politicians have not been serious. This is not the time to indulge in sign language and English. Let's address the technical matters.
I
agree entirely with Prof. I think our foreign policy decisions have been frail.
I mean,
and that reverberates, through all the governments we've had. In the Gambia, well over 44 Ghanaians were killed in 2007. What did the government of the day do? You understand? People are dying front, left, right, and center. So therefore, this is on our NDC NPP thing. As much as possible, we should make our positions clear on international issues, and we should take robust positions on any matter that affects Ghanaian nationals abroad.
But because the Ghanaian interests have not been clearly defined, Kwame Nkrumah said that at independence, every foreigner in this country is free. And since that time, any foreigner has found his way into Ghana and they live here at ease. We have Zamama people trading, and when they are questioned, they display voter ID cards. Okay? We have foreigners owning filling stations when the law stipulates that they cannot engage in those spheres of economic activity. So what is the Ghanaian interest? No Ghanaian can go to England and do what he likes. But in Ghana, any foreigner can come, and do what he likes. The Lebanese and the Syrians, those we call the Levantines, have for a long time monopolized, our economy.
Even though that is in the spirit of economic integration. But
what economic integration?
But we shouldn't tip the balance, against the nationals. I think if
Excuse me, what do you mean by national economic integration?
I believe so well that people that are investing in this country, regardless of the part of the world they come from, are also contributing, even though sometimes they take the lion's share of the returns. So what we have to do, and I agree with you on that point, that we should set the framework and make the parameters quite clear.
The laws do not work.
Much as possible, the laws...
Excuse me, Nigerians come to Ghana. 4 Nigerians in Adenta at a spot, drinking spot, pick bottles, charge at Ghanaians, and Ghanaians were free.
Well, the Chinese even shoot, people in Galamsey areas.
The Fulanis and all that.
So, I mean, are we now justifying that we should show some aggression?
That is not aggression, but the Ghanaian identity must be clearly defined. And if the Ghanaian identity is clearly defined, then our politicians will know what their responsibilities are towards the Ghanaians and how that interest, Ghanaian identity and interest must be protected and preserved.
This is what I think, and I said with Prof, in many of the things he mentions. We can't live like an island. In our contemporary times, we live in a world of interstate and intercontinental dependency. If there were any country that could live on its own, I believe the US could have, but then it relies upon other countries. So as much as possible, let's not, draw a red line in the soil that these are no-go areas. But as much as possible, the GIPC has got laws. The quantum of investment foreigners can make into any sphere of economic activity, just as the Prof has indicated. Today, Nana, to get a comfortable one-bedroom apartment in Accra, you pay well over 10,000 for 2 years. Who are those that have swelled up their renting costs? They are foreigners that come in with their safer and their naira. But if there is anything the South Africans need to take away from us, then it is the civility that Ghanaians have shown in times of being overshadowed by people coming from the rest of the sub-region. Guta complaint, we sought redress in a time of economic distress through the rule of law. Petitions were sent, their grievances were made clear, there were peaceful processions. So if there's anything to learn, I believe the South Africans need to sit at our feet and learn civility in our contemporary times.
Let me take a couple of messages from Facebook, and thank you very much, those of you who are joined by Facebook. This is Patience Amani. Says, we can't accept those lies. Besides, the xenophobic thing is not right. Basira Amadu says, it doesn't matter whether a Ghanaian died or not. The problem is Africans are dying. She can't show concern about Ghanaians and love others and leave others. He shouldn't treat us like kids. The nonsense should stop. And Ignatius Kofi says, no matter how irresponsible the government is to the plight of its citizens, and no matter how much scars have been left by the erstwhile apartheid, there is no justification for the barbaric acts perpetrated against fellow Africans by South Africans. The imperialists were we are striving to unite against, and we continue to mock us because there is no true united Africa in sight. Let me just go from to the beginning. Those of you who sent a message in the beginning, Donna Sasku says, this is total insanity. Well, if no Ghanaian was killed, then those who were killed, are they not human beings? and he uses much strong language there. But thank you very much for joining. I want to say thank you very much to Famous, Nee and Jennifer for producing the show, and Zalu, my director, who's telling me, Nana, your time is up. Nana, your time is up. You have only 10 seconds.
Yeah, 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
If the Ghanaian politicians have not got big investment in South Africa, then they must act boldly and bravely. It's because most of them have bought houses or have got investments. You know that...
no, I don't agree with that.
The late Gaddafi.
Because they have investment, they would want it to stop. So when they go, they don't get xenophobic out of it.
We don't get anything from South Africa.
I don't agree with that.
We can build MTN, we can put ShopRite in Ghana by
yes, we should all
we had the
and try and stop it. But
we
thank you very much for coming.
So welcome.
And Doug, thank you very much. Folks, that's all time will allow us. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. Thank you very much for watching.